Hey guys, my name's Dan and today I'm going to be talking about getting great underwater footage with the GoPro 5. So just over a year ago someone gave me the GoPro 5 and over the last kind of 12-13 months I've been using it quite a bit to get underwater footage and sequences of marine life, things like sharks and turtles and things like that. So I thought I'd show you guys a few of the things that I've found quite helpful to know about it when you're going about filming underwater. Now the first thing to mention about the 5 is that you don't actually need to have a housing to be able to take it underwater at all. If you're just snorkeling, you can take it down just like this. It doesn't need to have the housing unless you're going to go kind of more than 10 meters down, and then you will need to have the housing, which looks like this. And to put it into the housing, you basically pull the lens off, which took me quite a long time to figure out how to do. And then it goes and sits in the housing like that. And that will now take you down to about 40 meters or so. But as I say, if you're just going to be at the surface, or if you're doing just a shallow dive or anything like that, then just taking it down by itself is absolutely fine. Now the first thing to think about filming with your GoPro is the lighting. It needs a lot of help to be able to get the lighting looking good. There's a few ways of doing that. Now of course if you're going to be taking down the GoPro kind of just on a pole or just in your hand, then you're not going to be able to have extra hands free to be holding lighting into certain positions. But if you're going to be taking a little bit more down than just the GoPro, for example something like this, then you can attach lights to either side. So lighting wise, this is what I use at the moment. These are kudos lights and they look a bit like this. They come in several different settings. So first up is just big white light, and then you can press it once and it will kind of dim. And then you've got more of a targeted light. So if you're filming just something in a specific area, that's good for that. Press it another time and it goes a bit dimmer. And then the wide light, which is probably the most useful, just kind of spreads an area with light. And then press it again and it goes dimmer. I found the battery life on these to be not great, so you do need to make sure they are fully charged, and I have 2 of those that I use for my GoPro. The other thing to think about is the depth that you're going to be going down to. If you aren't using lighting, but you're not going to go too deep, maybe 10 meters, then you probably will be okay as long as there's good natural light, i.e. there's a nice bright day, not too much cloud cover. And if you're then using the sun as your lighting, so shoot with the sun behind you, you can get some really nice footage. Another thing to think about if you're going to be doing more than just snorkeling is to get a filter. You're going to need a red filter. The first colour that starts to go when you start going down in the ocean is the colour red, and sometimes you can put that colour back in again in post-production, but it's probably better to have it already existing on the footage. So you'll need to get yourself a red filter. I did have one for this GoPro, and then while someone was borrowing it in South Africa last year, they let go of it and it drifted down to the ocean floor. So it's now sitting on the bottom of the Indian Ocean. Definitely something that's worth getting to make sure your footage is looking a little bit nicer and the colour is looking a little bit more balanced. There's a few settings within the GoPro itself that will change the quality of the image. First up is frame rates. Frame rates is how many frames are within 1 second of film, and the GoPro offers quite a few different options. In 1080, I'll talk about resolutions in a second, but in 1080 you can shoot in 24, 25, 48, 50, 80, 90 or 120 frames a second. Now I've found that much beyond 50 frames and the quality starts dropping. It starts to look a bit more grainy and it doesn't look quite so nice. Filming in 24, 25 frames is the absolute best option really, especially if you're not really worried too much about slow motion. If you're going to go to slow motion, I would say you probably don't want to go much over 50 frames a second. And also if you're doing things like interviews above the surface or getting nice shots around before the dive or anything like that, then you probably don't want to do that on a really high frame rate. You can do that on kind of 24 or 25. But the other thing to consider is your field of view. Now within the 1080 setting on the 5, you've got a lot of options. You can use super view, wide, medium, linear or narrow. And that means that you can change the ultimate kind of, the classic GoPro footage that we all know is that kind of really wide angle, but you can change it to a medium if you're doing something like a vlog kind of style thing.
Last couple of days I have been testing out my new wetsuit on part of the beach, just a bit further up.
Now up from 1080, you've got another few options as well, one being 4K, which seems to be what everyone's shooting in at the moment. But in 4K, you've only got 24 or 25 frames a second, so no slow motion options there really. And in the field of view, you only have wide as your option. You can't take a medium view or anything like that, it has to be wide, which if you're filming underwater, probably isn't too much of a bad thing. You want quite a wide field of view for filming underwater. But the thing I've found filming with the GoPro or watching other people's GoPro footage is just how shaky their footage is. This is the absolute worst possibility. This is a nightmare for having steady footage, especially if you're going to start extending it to its kind of full reach. If you're trying to film underwater with something like this, it's going to look shaky. It's going to look very difficult to watch. This is ideal really for if you're say on a boat and there's a turtle swimming by and you kind of dip it into the water, or what I was doing a lot of, which is great white sharks. So shark would swim around the back of the boat and instead of jumping in with it, you can dip your GoPro in and you get some really nice footage that way. But for filming underwater, i.e. if you're diving or if you're snorkeling, this is really difficult to get good steady image quality. What I use is this thing. This is from Backscatter, which as you can see has two handles either side. The other advantage of it is you can attach parts to the ends here, and that's where you attach your lights. So you can bring a lot more down with you. But with the GoPro attached here, it attaches with the housing on the middle there. You can then have two hands on the GoPro and you can have a lot more control over how you're moving it around. Your diving has to be at quite a good standard to be able to use this. Obviously you're not going to be you can't use your hands for doing anything else. You have two hands on here. Or if you're sitting on the bottom, obviously that makes it a lot easier as well. But it does allow you to get much more control over how you're moving the camera around, and ultimately you'll get a lot more steady shots from using something like this. So I hope you guys found that helpful. Feel free to leave a like or a comment below. Those were my tips on how to get good underwater footage from the GoPro 5, and I'll see you next time.